Good morning, Facebook. I'm going to talk a little bit about intermittent fasting since we're starting the day. I get a lot of questions about if fasting is good for you because there's just so much mixed information out there that a person should start their day with breakfast every single day. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I just think there's a lot of different ways to go about living a healthy lifestyle. One thing I know is that there really isn't any one particular way to get to a healthy lifestyle. So if you're working with a practitioner or you're working with a trainer, you're working with a nutrition coach, and they're real fixated on it has to be this way, it has to be that way, it has to be this way, it has to be that way, you want to try not to work with someone who has such a limited mindset and try to work with someone who is willing to explore all different options, because everybody's body is so different. And, they're all going to metabolize food differently. They're all going to really respond from an allergenic perspective differently. So you can't just expect that everyone's going to handle different nutrients the same, which when it comes to fasting, some folks just really do great with fasting and other folks do horrible with fasting. So you got to have an open-minded approach to it. One of the benefits of fasting is that it gives your body an opportunity to get into more of a healing state. So for example, for a person like myself with an autoimmune disease, my body has a response every time I put something in it. If I smell something in the air, if I'm out working in the yard and I get something in my hands, so my skin will have a response, the inside of me has a response, it happens through my lungs. So you want to make sure that you give your body the opportunity to not have a response. And so when I fast, that means I give my body from last night after dinner all the way until noon today the opportunity to not have an allergic response to something that I take into my body. Now, if you're not having allergies and you're not having issues with that, does that mean that you shouldn't fast? No, there's still tons of benefits of fasting. Whether we like it or not, even if you eat everything 100% healthy, we still run the risk that we're going to take in, foreign intruders through our food. So fasting can just be so truly beneficial. It also helps us to stay more thermogenic. When you think about it, when you go to bed, your growth hormone starts to release after 10 o'clock. That's when we start to release it. And growth hormone is the hormone that's really going to help us to regenerate and to also be more thermogenic. So if the longer we extend that fast, the more we allow our growth hormone to release. And there are people that are paying thousands of dollars to inject growth hormone into their body, which to each his own. I don't know why it's not legal, because it could save a lot of lives if it was, but you can only get it by spending thousands of dollars and by having a specific prescription for it. So what you can do to release more growth hormone is fast. You can go to bed at night and get a good night's rest and make rest a priority, and you can attempt to fast the next day and extend your day before you take in that first meal so that you extend that release of the growth hormone. So when is it good to fast and when is it bad to fast? Well, I always, with clients, make sure that a person is out of a major blood sugar zone before I start fasting with them. So typically, if I first meet with someone, I do a 5-month nutrition program. I don't normally start them on fasting. Now, I might meet with 30 people and maybe one of those people I would start with fasting. And the reason is because if you're in a very consistent pattern on a blood sugar diet and your body is just constantly needing to run off of blood sugar, then fasting is going to be very challenging for you in the beginning, because what's going to happen is you're going to wake up and the blood sugar furnace is going to say, when are you going to fuel me? When are you going to fuel me? When are you going to build the blood sugar? And if you try to fast in that situation, then you actually slow the adrenals down and you get to a position where you actually make yourself worse instead of better, and you can ultimately end up having kind of an unnecessary cortisol response. So that's when fasting would actually be negative. So how do you get out of that blood sugar situation and get into a position where it would be more appropriate and would actually be healthy for you to fast? that would be getting yourself into a place where your body is using body fat for energy, or it's using fat as your primary energy source. So usually if I set someone up on intermittent fasting, then I would typically set them up on a ketogenic diet. So I usually couple the two together. It absolutely is not a requirement. So by no means do you have to do keto and do intermittent fasting. It's certainly not a requirement. John has done intermittent fasting before, and he ate carbs all afternoon. And when I say carbs, I mean starchy carbs, not just vegetables. So ideally, what you want to be able to do is get your body into a position to where it's not just running off of sugar. So it isn't just needing to convert the next amount of sugar that you provide to it. So start to increase your fat content and have a moderate protein content, and start to slowly decrease the carb content, especially the starchy carb content, and get your body more accustomed to basically using fat for energy, and start using different sources of fat. And those different sources of fat could be avocado oil, they could be MCT oil, it could be coconut oil, just different different methods of taking fat in, but start improving and increasing your fat. The average person doesn't even really consume enough fat in a day to even sustain their blood sugar, much less take them through a successful fast. Most people are really shortchanging themselves on fat. They don't even realize it. We've been so prone for so many years to think about being on a low-fat diet that we're really not taking in the right fats, and we're really not taking in enough fat. So my suggestion is if you're thinking about doing intermittent fasting, I would sincerely consider getting yourself into a more fat-adapted state, not so much a blood sugar burning state in the beginning. Over time, you can always increase those carbs and still kind of, get yourself back to where you have that carb ratio up. But to start to dive into the intermittent fasting, my suggestion would be increase your fat, make yourself have a moderate amount of protein, and then lower the carbs a little bit. And then what I would suggest is waking up and not having anything after dinner, which I normally suggest anyways. So, waking up and just starting your day, but, not having your first meal the first week until 10 o'clock. So if you typically would have, breakfast at 6 a.m., try to go to 10 o'clock that morning and see how you feel. And then the next week, try to go till 11 o'clock and see how you feel. And then the next week, try to go to 12 o'clock and see how you feel. Do not fast if you're starving during the morning. If you're in a position where you're attempting to fast, but you're shaky and you're starving, it's not working. So don't do it. You should always feel the ping of hunger, and you should feel the emptiness in your stomach from hunger, but you should not feel famished. You should not feel starving. I feel the clearest when I'm fasting. My mind is focused, and most people think that I'm on a stimulant if I'm fasting, and I don't even do caffeine in my coffee, so I don't even have a stimulant. But during a fast, I'm actually the most stimulated that I'll be all day long. The minute I take food in is right when I start to decline on energy, because my body starts going through that systematic process. And it doesn't mean that my energy just falls and that I don't feel good for the rest of the day, but I can feel an immediate decline on my energy when I go from the intermittent fasting stage or that state right into the food. And so typically I'll have my first meal between 11, 12, or 1. It just depends on my day, and it depends on, when I can get it in terms of my schedule. And then I have one day out of the week where I do have my first meal at around 9 o'clock. But again, I get up around 3:30 or 4 o'clock that day, so it just makes sense. It's more of an extended day. Now, I hear a lot about coffee, I won't even use a brand of coffee, but I hear a lot about adding a lot of fat to coffee and having a keto coffee, or kind of starting your day with that type of thing. Understand that true intermittent fasting means fasting. So if you make a cup of coffee and you put butter in it, and you put a full tablespoon of butter in it, or you put a full tablespoon of coconut oil in it, 1 tablespoon of coconut oil is 120 calories. So a half a tablespoon of coconut oil is 60 calories. So to really stay fasted, you really want to stay around maybe 20 calories, which hopefully shouldn't break the fast, maybe 30 calories, which hopefully wouldn't break the fast. So that would be like a teaspoon of coconut oil. So the average person, if they're truly going to try to just fast through the morning, they should just have a cup of hot tea, or they should have a cup of coffee, and maybe just put a couple drops of stevia in it, or a little of one of the teaspoons of the powdered stevia in it, and not necessarily put the fat in their coffee. Now, it's okay to start your day with a fat coffee, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing intermittent fasting if you put 120 calories worth of fat in your coffee. It's a great way to sustain you, and it's a great way to keep you feeling great and not having a lot of substance. And it could be good for fat burning and for helping you to lose weight, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're in a fasted state. So if you break the fast with too much fat, then you've kind of eliminated that whole growth hormone benefit, and maybe that, whole ability to really kind of rejuvenate and repair. When would fasting be highly beneficial? Well, just think about whatever disease you're working with. I'm not a doctor, so I can't instruct you to do it because it's going to heal a disease. But what I can tell you is that if your system is in chronic overload and it's ulcerated or it's acidic, when you go 12 to 15 hours fasting, you'll give that a break and you'll give it a chance to calm down. Now, let's talk about the types of fats that you can take in. I have coconut oil here. I obviously believe in coconut oil, and I buy my coconut oil at O'Fallon Nutrition. I just feel like they have the best prices, and I feel like it's a quality product. And this is the Now Foods brand. There are lots of brands, and they have several brands at O'Fallon Nutrition, and they're really knowledgeable, so you can go in and ask them questions about which one you should get, why you should get it, that kind of thing. But I have always done really well with Now Foods, and I feel like they have a good quality product. The other fat that I would use would be MCT oil. Again, this is a Now Foods product, and I like MCT oil because I will put that on my food more. I don't necessarily put that in my coffee. So the thing about MCT oil is that it's an oil, and it can kind of go right through you. So if you're having a coffee, you want to make sure that it's not going to really uproot your stomach and just kind of go right through you in the morning. So usually I suggest MCT oil when you're having substance. So if you're having breakfast, you're having lunch, you're having dinner, and you're putting that on your vegetables, I think people digest MCT oil a lot better. Now, the other thing would be ghee or grass-fed butter. I know a lot of people put this in their coffee, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I think it's great. They're quality products. But there's also a lot of people that don't do well on dairy. Maybe you're losing weight, and then all of a sudden you come to a stall and you're not sure why. Maybe you added grass-fed dairy. Maybe you added the ghee in. I would consider stepping those out and seeing if your weight doesn't change. I did just post a really good article on dairy and the dangers of dairy. And I also posted a great article on intermittent fasting and the benefits of intermittent fasting. But again, you have to learn your body. And so my suggestion would be, in the beginning, start the process without dairy, without ghee, and see how you feel. And then a month down the road, take 30 days. Really, really try to take 30 days. I normally like it when people take 60 days, but take 30 days without it, and then start it. If the weight loss slows, if you start to swell again, if your digestion starts to get disrupted again, if your joints start to feel achy again, whatever comes up, drop out the dairy again, because dairy is a very high histamine producing food. You'll read different articles where it'll say it's the #1 histamine producing food. Then you'll read other articles that say it's right underneath gluten on producing histamine levels. But I mean, either way, it's a high histamine producing food. And so if your tendency is to have, a more allergy prone body, don't add a food that's going to produce a high histamine level, because you're going to increase the possibility of having the skin issue, having the joint issue, having the gut issue. These are the things that I work with people on a nutrition program. It's easy to just go out to Pinterest and read about keto and then start keto, but then all of a sudden you're super restricted on your diet, but you stop losing weight like you thought you should, and you maybe don't feel as good as what you think you should. You need someone to really dial it in and understand you and understand your body and how it's going to metabolize this stuff. There's also things that you can take prior to having this to break it down better. There's a lot of things to take into consideration, but I would not start out with ghee, and I would not start out with grass-fed butter. I would start out with the coconut oil or the MCT oil. And that's just my personal opinion. In the past 15 years of working with folks, I feel like they've done better when they've started out with that and brought the dairy in later down the road. Another thing to consider would be coconut butter. Coconut butter is a great thing to combine with your coffee. It's an awesome way to feel like you get some flavor and to feel like you get something almost kind of sweet added to your coffee. But just remember, this has carbohydrates in it. So this is 2 tablespoons of this would be considered a serving size. I would never suggest someone to do 2 tablespoons of it at one time. But it has carbohydrates in it. So you just have to take that into consideration, especially if you're trying to do a low carb diet. This counts as part of your day. So you can't just throw this in and just kind of think it's going to flavor the coffee, and it's not going to have an overall impact on you from a fat burning or a thermogenic perspective. But also understand that this would break the fast. So if you're truly trying to do intermittent fasting, these types of items are going to break your fast. It doesn't make this a bad product. It's just I would pull it into the afternoon as a little jolt. So I always suggest something like the coconut butter. This is my Coconut Kitchen, the coconut butter, and you can get this at O'Fallon Nutrition as well. And then I also suggest coconut oil. And then I would suggest the 2 of those in combination with maybe a dash of unsweetened coconut milk, and then add a little bit of Vital Proteins, collagen protein to it, blend that up, and that's a great afternoon snack, and you get a little jolt from the caffeine. That's when I suggest pulling products like that in. If you're intermittent fasting, I don't suggest bringing it in the morning when avoidable. If you get yourself to a fat adapted state and you can tell that you're going through the fast and that you're truly feeling satisfied and alert, and you're not feeling like you're being drained by the fast, keep continuing to fast. It can be life altering, okay? Now, just because you're wanting to gain muscle and you're not wanting to burn fat doesn't mean that you cannot benefit from intermittent fasting. I would recommend going out to YouTube and looking up Terry Crews. I think he has an amazing shape and he has an incredible amount of muscle. He does intermittent fasting. Learn about how he does it. Get someone to professionally structure an intermittent fasting plan for you. Don't just dive in and just expect that you're going to have all the knowledge in the world just because you watched a couple YouTube videos. You need a team, to kind of jump in and do this type of thing for you. This is not an easy process. There's a reason why people professionally do this. So it's something that you want to consider investing in and hiring someone, because it's going to improve your health over time. When you're really thinking about trying to change a lifestyle, don't spare the expense for it. When you finally invest in a car or you finally invest in a house, you don't spare the expense for it. So don't spare the expense for your body and for your health. And when you think about losing weight this coming January, don't just think about losing it in a Biggest Loser type fashion. Think about losing it because you want to be healthy for the rest of your life. And you want to find a formula to maintain that health for the rest of your life. So look at this January and tell yourself, I'm going to make a change, and that change is going to last me for a lifetime, and that change is going to impact my entire family. Okay, so don't just look at it from a scale perspective. Look at it as, how can I change my health? Because when you change your health, you change your weight. That's what we do. Take a look at us at integritytraininggroup.com. We have a 5-month nutrition program, and we can help you with that. If you're thinking about intermittent fasting, go out to my Facebook page. I just posted a really great article on the benefits of intermittent fasting. I also like Dr. Mercola. If you go out to his website, there's a lot of great information on intermittent fasting. I have assisted people with intermittent fasting for years. I've done intermittent fasting for years, and it's really, I believe, been crucial in saving my life and helping me to remain as healthy as I am with an autoimmune disease. Intermittent fasting and ketogenic diet has truly saved my life. It can be used for weight loss, and it can be effective for weight loss, but I never suggest going into a ketogenic diet or intermittent fasting because you want to lose weight. I don't like it when people binge over the holidays and then they jump on a keto diet or they jump on a bandwagon like intermittent fasting because they want to get all their holiday weight off. I believe in getting the inflammation off, and I believe in enjoying time with your family, but intermittent fasting and ketogenic dieting, it should be considered a lifestyle change. It's not something you dive in and you dive out, and you dive in and you dive out. There can be a lot of negative health consequences into doing that. Again, with fasting, your adrenals can dive down, and they can down regulate if you're not prepared and you're not in a healthy state to start the fasting. And a ketogenic diet, if you do it for 2 weeks and then you blow it on the weekend, and then you do it for 2 weeks and then you blow it on the weekend, you can expect your lipid panel to look completely different the next time you go to the doctor, and you won't be happy with it because you don't want to throw all that fat in your body and then next weekend, throw all those carbs into your body. You need to get yourself into a fat adapted state, and sometimes that takes weeks to be able to do that. And you don't want to throw it all away, all that time and energy that you put into getting yourself into a fat adapted state, and then you just throw it all away. There are health consequences to that. So as you approach January and you decide to make the decision that you want to make a life change and you want to lose some weight and you want to be healthier, look at it, tunnel vision. I want to be healthier. Okay, when you focus on the health and you focus on bringing everything in your body, paying attention to the ingredients. Yes, the macros matter, but the ingredients matter almost more. Okay, because if the macros fit, but the ingredients are garbage, you're still poisoning your system. So look at providing yourself with the healthiest route possible. When January starts, everything you bring into your mouth is going to produce health. It's not going to further disease. I appreciate you all listening. Again, integritytraininggroup.com. We have a 5-month nutrition program. We also have a special that's coming up, and I just posted about it yesterday. You can take a look at it where you can get 4 personal training sessions and 1 nutrition session for $250. Just take a look at our website at integritytraininggroup.com. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.